Everybody knows your name round here, and that's alright. Yeah, everybody learned your game round here, and that's alright. And you told me if I stay around here, you'll find a good enough place to hide. But I see you, I see you, so come on out tonight.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Sunshine Spotlight. My name is James Campion, and I'm really happy to welcome in from Portland, Oregon, one of the alumni of the Underwater, in fact, the very first Underwater Sunshine Festival, Mr. Kasey Anderson. Kasey, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, James. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I see you're wearing your Portland Trail. I told Kasey when we talked this week, I get a kick out of it. If you don't follow him on Twitter, you must, especially during the NBA playoffs. The best sports tweets going. You're a maniac. I love it.
Thank you. That's a good way to describe it. I would describe my fandom as maniacal. Yep, I have my Blazers hat on. I have my No Name Book Club sweatshirt on. I'm ready.
So, do you have any prediction before we begin the interview proper of how you guys are going to do?
I think the Blazers can get through the first round. I think the Nuggets it seems like they're a little banged up. I don't know who. I know they aren't going to have Jamal Murray. So I think if the Blazers get a couple of good bounces, they can get through the first round. I don't think they'll go much further than that. I fear that we are headed for what felt inevitable at the beginning of the season, which is the Lakers-Nets finals. I hope that we won't get that. I would love to see the Knicks advance a little further. I would love to see like a Suns Heat finals. I think would be really fun, but I think we're headed for Lakers-Nets, unfortunately.
All right. Well, we'll see if you're right. First of all, Kasey has this is a very interesting story. Kasey and the Honkies have a record out called Let the Bloody Moon Rise, which, by the way, I've been listening to this week. Fantastic job, bro.
Thank you.
If you love the Stones, if you love Townes Van Zandt, if you love Steve Earle, if you love Tom Waits, great guitars, great riffs, wonderful lyrics, real funky mood with the band. But you recorded that record in 2012. That's 9 years old. Take me through this journey. Where were you? I believe you told me this week you just got off the road from touring with Counting Crows.
Yep. We did the Crows tour because they had covered Like Teenage Gravity on the Underwater Sunshine record. So we went out with them and Field Report and came back from that tour. I did a quick tour as a guitar player in Star Anna's band. And then we played, I don't think it was Underwater Sunshine Fest yet. It was Outlaw Roadshow at the time.
Yes.
But it was still at the Bowery Electric. We played, Star and I played a duo gig at the Bowery Electric. And I came back and it became known to me that it was known to everyone else in my life that I had a substance use problem and that I was probably headed to prison. And so with the record was done, it was mixed. It had not yet been mastered. There were some copies of it floating around to fans who had like supported the Kickstarter. There were some friends had copies of it. And that October of 2012, I went to treatment. The following year, I went to prison. And about 6 months into my stint at the first place I was locked up in, I got an email in the little prison system that from someone who said, "Hey, the Honkies record came out. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Music." And I thought, "Oh, that's odd. It's not done yet." Okay. And so, there's nothing I could do about it. I was locked up. And so I sent back a message that just said, okay. Okay. So I got out and I tried to do my due diligence in finding out how it got on those streaming services, and I couldn't really come up with anything. And, people had unmastered copies of it. People had the rough mixes. And we had done, I think, like a really short run of CDs with a quick master to sell at the one gig that we did at the Outlaw Roadshow gig. And so maybe it came from one of those, but for whatever reason, it's on streaming services. I mean, there's a version of that record on streaming services. And I had just kind of resigned myself to, okay, that's how that record is going to live. and went on about my life and went on about my business. And then this thing happened last summer where a song that I wrote called The Dangerous Ones got used in a short political film that ended up with like 12 million views or something like that. And all of a sudden I had an audience that was similar to the size that I had when we were out with Crows. And I had been working on a solo record, and I had said and thought this is going to be my last thing. And the pandemic kind of halted production on that. And I thought, well, now I have an audience again, and I have a chance. It doesn't seem like a lot of people know Let the Bloody Moon Rise exists. And certainly no one has ever heard it the way that I want them to hear it. We've never released it really officially. We've never done a press campaign around it. And so I just sent Kurt Block a message, who produced the record, and I sent Ed Brooks a message, who mastered the record, and I said, hey, I want to put this out for real, and I want to put it out. I mean, like, the other version has 17 songs, and half of them are demos, and some of them are stuff that I didn't intend for this record. And I said, I want to put out the record we made for real. So we finished it, mastered it, sequenced it, and now it's out for real the way it was meant to be intended. And listening back to it was like, I mean, I had a lot of bad feelings wrapped up in 2012 and in those sessions, and so did the guys in the band. But when I decided I was going to put it out, I sent everybody a message and said, hey, I'm going to put this record out. If anybody has any objections, please let me know. No one had any objections. And then after a couple of listens, I sent another message that just said, hey, we're all in different spots now, and I just want to say, like, this kicks ass. This is a good record that we made. So it's cool, man. It's cool, and it's nice to see it be received by people with open minds.
It's an amazing story because, now, first of all, you're when I interviewed you, when you came to the festival, Adam and I interviewed you for the podcast. This was 2018, so you had gotten out, and then you were clean. Since then, you've had a daughter, 6-month-old daughter, I believe, Winona.
Winona is her name. Yep.
And you're in a healthy marriage, and you're in a healthy spot. You mentioned about going back and listening to that music. It's a smoking band coming off a big tour. You guys are tight as a drum. The songs, though, dark. They're very self-effacing. In fact, I'd say self-flatulating. I mean, you're beating yourself up in these songs. Your lifestyle, yourself, where you come from. Even like Teenage Gravity. There's something about being lost. There's something damaged about these people. So how difficult was that to look back at that? Was it a good thing ultimately? I mean, I know the music's great and the songs are great, but we're in a different place now.
Yeah, it was hard, but it was also really kind of eye-opening. And you're right. And even like Teenage Gravity, like the refrain of that song is, I guess I'm in love. You know what I mean? Like, if there's this resignation, the guy's like, oh man, okay, I guess I'm in love. Right. But I think that was really the only area of my life that I was using as an outlet to kind of try and convey to people what was going on with
the music.
Because the music. I wasn't doing a lot of truth telling, right? Like, nobody in the band heard from me that I was using the way that I was using. Nobody in the band heard from me that I had committed wire fraud and was probably going to go to prison. Nobody knew about that. But when I listen back to these songs, they're all of these characters are lying, and they're confronting their lies, and they're in relationships that don't work, and they're tangled up in the sort of darker corners of life. And it's like, oh, this is just an autobiographical record that I tried to pass off as a bunch of stories about other characters, and they're not about other characters.
Yeah, it's just like a great novel, because what you're doing is you're revealing yourself through the songs. And I'm sure you're even talking to yourself when you're writing them. I mean, how do you compose? I mean, these songs are true band songs. We used to joke all the time about how the Stones always sound like, and this is true of some Stone stuff, they're just in there jamming, and then a riff comes, and then a song comes. These songs, though, sound composed the way Tom Petty would compose a song, or Dylan, or something like that. Where do you start to build this out? Because that is a great insight into how you were able to communicate with yourself first. Before you would communicate with the fans and the band first, too. Yeah.
So I had this record is the first and only record where I have written lyrics first, and then the guitar player in the band was Andrew McCaig. And so there are a handful of songs on the record where I just handed him a set of lyrics and said, I have a cadence, but I don't have a song, like like Ain't Life Grand or Down Lucine, you know, like I would say I don't have a melody, but the cadence is this, and then I would kind of speak the lyrics to him, and he would take it from there, and he would write the riff. And I made those songs with that band in mind. Like you said, it's a very purposeful thing, and I think it reflects that the way that it sounds. It's somebody knowing like, okay, I have a really kick-ass guitar player in this band. I have a really heavy drummer in this band. I have a great key player, a great bass player. I want to give them a chance to be the band that they are.
That's cool.
And then put myself on top of it. And I think we pulled that off. I mean, I don't think anything that happens, you know, like it's a record that has great guitar solos, but it's not just about that. It's a record that has some really great arrangements, but it's not just about that. There's some of my favorite writing that I've done is on this record, but you know, there's some songs that are just rock and roll songs that aren't, you know, super poignant Townes Van Zandt stuff.
Yeah, fun songs. Yeah, and you even name check Townes and you know, in one of the songs. It's funny because I do want to play a video. This is the very first. Let's get to the video, and then we'll talk more about this because this is the very first time we've had people play live here, do you know, solo versions. We've had videos. We've had live performances. This is the first time we've had like a band rehearsing or kind of demoing or working something out in the studio. This is, please introduce it, but this is the Honkies. This is you and the Honkies. No drums on this one, playing a song called Heavy Heart. And Heavy Heart is not on this record.
It's not. It got released as a single, though. It's from the same sort of sessions.
Right.
So this is Ty Bailey and Jeff Fielder, and Jeff was, you know, kind of an auxiliary honky. He's on all over this record. And we were working up this arrangement of Heavy Heart, which is a UMI song. UMI is this great Australian band, but their version is very different. And so I thought, you know, I love this song, but I can't deliver it musically the way that Tim and UMI sung. But I think that I have an idea of how I can deliver it musically. And Jeff and Ty are such great players that I thought, well, I'll kind of give them the bones of this idea, and we'll build it out from there. And our friend Craig happened to be with us, and we shared this rehearsal space with Duff McKagan's band, Loaded, in Seattle. And, you know, it was one of those nights when we knew Duff's band wasn't going to be in there, so we were there as late as we wanted to be. And Craig was filming, and we just kept running this song and running the song. And this take is like us kind of gelling and us going like, oh, man, okay, this works. Like, this arrangement works.
This is so cool. Let's get inside Kasey Anderson and the Honkies in 2012, working out a song in Seattle called Heavy Heart.
It doesn't have to start like this. I kind of like it.
Watching too much TV, I'm thinner than I should be. I'm like a waterlogged ball that no one wants to kick around anymore. Got an all-day morning hairdo that no comb can get through. Talking Nolan Bear, call, silk cut souvenir. Miss you like sleep, and there's nothing romantic about the hours I keep. And it's the mornings when it starts. I don't dress so sharp, now I got a heavy heart. Girls I kissed in grade 4. Yeah, I piss off my friends, not digging a hole, just staring at the floor. Every t-shirt's got a wine stain, and I'm loving cigarettes again. Yeah, I know every tune about so sharp. Now I got a heavy heart. Just a low rhythm playing, palpitating, up under my shirt. And there's a weight that's sitting so hard that it hurts. Oh my God, it hurts. Watching so much TV, thinner than I should be, like a waterlogged ball that no one wants to kick around anymore. I miss you like sleep, and there's nothing romantic about the hours I keep, and it's the mornings when it starts. Oh, my heavy heart.
There it is, Heavy Heart, Kasey Anderson, and the Honkies 9 years ago in the studio. That is really cool, man. What a sweet song.
Thank you.
Kind of a longing song. There's solemnity in there, but also hope, and there's an edginess. I love it. But definitely check out the brand new record, or the record from 2012 for anybody watching and listening now. Let the Bloody Moon Rise. I love that title. Okay, a couple of things. I wanted to ask you real quick about Like Teenage Gravity. I heard that for the first time on that Counting Crows collection, which our podcast and festival's named after, Underwater Sunshine. But I noticed it came out, I think, in 2013. Is that right? So your record wasn't even out officially yet. So a lot of people would have heard Counting Crows do that before Kasey Anderson, unless you got that boot, right?
Right. I think so. I mean, I did it. Well, we did a version, an acoustic version on a record called Nowhere Nights that predates the Crows record. And that's how Adam heard the song.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But I mean, certainly, you know, I mean, there were a handful of people who heard that record, right? Not the amount of people who heard Adam and the Crows play that on the record, or play it. You know, I mean, they played that at almost every show they did that summer, and they've played it since. So that really was, I mean, there is a whole swath of my fans who came to me because they found out that what they thought was a great Counting Crows song was actually a great Counting Crows arrangement of somebody else's song.
Yeah, it is a great arrangement.
It is.
That reminds me, you were kind enough during the break there, while we're playing the video, to mention to me that you liked my Warren Zevon book and that you're a fan. We spoke about it at the podcast, but and I'm not here to plug my book or anything. And thank you very much for purchasing it. But you had an interesting take, because I did set out in that book to write about music specifically, and I would say your writing is in the vein of Warren's work as well. Talk about what he meant to you, and if you want to mention about what I.
Of course, and you should. That book is great, and you should plug it. And if you won't, I'm happy to. It's called Accidentally Like a Martyr. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, what we were talking about was the humor of Warren's work, and I'll get into that. There's this writer named Jeffrey Himes, who's a music writer, who saw me at South by Southwest in, I think, 2010. And he said, your songs are really great, but there's no levity. You don't let up. There's no humor in there. And that was true at the time, I think. And I thought, you know, he said that, and I thought, wow, like, who do I really admire? Okay, Waits, there's humor in Waits' songs. Zevon, there's humor in Zevon songs. Dylan, there's humor in Dylan songs. And then, you know, you go back through the pantheon of writers. There's good writers use humor. And he's right, I wasn't doing that. And I think that in Let the Bloody Moon Rise and in the work that I've done since then, I've done a better job of working in some humor and some levity into the songs. And your book struck me because it addresses that, and it addresses Warren's gifts as a writer and as an artist and as a musician. And there's the oral history of Warren Zevon, which gets more into the sort of mythos of him and the behavior and what the end of his life was like. And that's interesting stuff, but I don't typically read. If I want to read about music, I want to read about music. I want to read about how the art that I love was made. I'm not as interested in the chaos of Warren Zevon's life. And I understand why that book was written, and I'm sure it was very cathartic for Crystal to compile those interviews and do that. And I think it's a really beautiful document of his life, but that's not what I read music books for. What I read music books for is what you do, which is to examine the work, right, and sort of strip away the veneer of Warren Zevon, the legend, and get down to Warren Zevon, the writer. And that's what strikes me about your book.
Thanks. Appreciate it. You don't know how much I appreciate it. Coming from a really great songwriter and somebody who's a fan. So that's why I wrote it. It's a lot of people like yourself who write these songs, and I often feel like, and that's why I do this show, that people need to be introduced to music that they normally wouldn't have shoved down their throat. Mm-hmm. And I know radio has kind of taken a hit over the last 5-10 years. And I know a lot of people get their Spotify playlists or their Pandora, and then they listen to the same stuff over and over again, just to switch it up a little bit, and I try to put different genres on here. But so for you saying that, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. So before I let you go, I got to ask you about the future for Kasey Anderson. And you mentioned this week to me that you're working on some solo stuff. I know when you played the festival, you played with the Hawks and Doves, right? Mm-hmm. Are you playing with a lot of the same guys now? What's the solo record going to be like?
So the solo record is a solo record in name only. I mean, it's just going to be it's not Kasey Anderson and it's not Hawks and Doves. It'll just be a Kasey Anderson record. And I haven't done one of those since Nowhere Nights. And I have a job now. I have a full-time job now at the Alano Club of Portland, which is a nonprofit organization where I work with people in recovery from substance use and mental health disorders. And I really love the work. And as you mentioned, I have a wife and I have a little baby. And I thought, for the foreseeable future, I want to be mostly home. And so I thought, okay, I am out of prison. I worried I was never going to make another record again. It seems like people have been forgiving to me. I feel very fortunate in that most of my friends in the music industry are still my friends. Most of the people who supported me still supported me. And I thought, okay, I've had a conversation with whatever is left of my audience for almost 20 years now. And I don't just want to walk away from that. I want to leave that conversation somewhere, whether it's on pause or if this is the last chapter for a while. And so I wrote a group of songs that I think doesn't bring it into that conversation that I've had with my audience, but leaves it in a good place. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to make this record and I'm going to try and address the people who listen to my records, then I want to work with the people that I've worked with in my career. And so I started, like the guys from the Honkies are on the record. Some of the folks from Hawks and Doves are on the record. Some of my friends from the Decemberists are on the record. A couple of the Crows guys are on the record. Sadler Vaden from Isbell's band is on the record. Just friends that I've made, people that I've worked with before. I thought this is cool. Like this, I'm just going to make this a fun celebratory project. And if it's the last thing I do for a while, great. I had a great time doing it, and I think the songs are good. And so we stopped working on it because everybody stopped working on everything for a while. And we just got it to the point where, the songs are knocked into shape and we're about to head to mix. And I think it'll be out next year. And I hope that we can play some shows around it.
That is just fantastic. I listen, you're inspiring to me. And
thank you.
When we talked this week, and I hope to the people watching, one of the reasons, and I mentioned this to you this week as well, one of the reasons why I do this show is I want other musicians. Of course, it's like a community. That's what Adam, built. And I hope I was a small part of that. And everybody who works on the show, Barbara and Lindsay and Danielle, they work so hard to get these shows out. And your kind of story, so inspiring. Never give up. Always know where your talent. Here you are languishing. You don't know what your future is going to be, and your music is blowing up outside, and it's coming back to you, and you're confused about it. But you have to feel in some way happy that that's happening. That stuff that you wrote is out there. So it was out there waiting for you when you came out and you cleaned up, and your life is It fills me with joy that you're going to be home with the kid. I tell you, this quarantine has sort of been like a weird blessing for me because I was able to work on a book for a year, but I get to see my daughter for more than like a couple hours a day. You know what I mean? And you can't get that stuff back. So congratulations to you, man, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, man. And I want to say, like, the community that you and Adam and Barbara and Katie and all the folks who work on this have built. I mean, those are the people who, when I came out, you know, I got out in 2016 and I didn't really play a show until 2018. And when I did, it was people who had seen me at the Outlaw Roadshow or had seen me on the Crows tour. And then through playing the Sunshine Festival, I mean, I met Matt, I met Sean, I met the Rivoli folks, Michaela Davis, like all of these, the community that you all have created, both listeners and artists, is so tight knit and so supportive of each other. And it really is, you know, like there aren't a lot of communities like that in the industry. And so, you know, I'm grateful for it. And I know that the folks who have been exposed to music they wouldn't have otherwise been exposed to are grateful for it. So thank you.
All right. You are very welcome. Continue to inspire us. I can't wait to hear the new music. Best of love to the girls. And thanks again for coming on the show, man.
You bet, James. Thanks for having me.
All right. That is Kasey Anderson. This is Sunshine Spotlight. See you next time.
The tears we shed in anger for every breath